Saskatchewan is failing its prairie landscapes and the wild plants and animals who depend on them for survival. Recent estimates, based on new mapping work, show that of the original 59 million acres of grasslands in the Prairie Ecozone, less than 10% remains. This monumental conversion of land from complex and diverse prairies and wetlands to the simplified tracts we now see growing canola and grain monocultures did not all happen long ago. It's happening right now. According to the World Wildlife Fund, there have been years during the last decade when the North American Great Plains lost more acres to conversion than the Amazon. Between 1990 and 2015, Saskatchewan lost 3.3 million acres of native grassland. Much of that loss was in the southwest of the province, but the Aspen Parkland ecoregion may be seeing the greatest losses of natural habitat. Farmers, particularly in east central Saskatchewan, are ditching and draining wetlands at a ferocious rate, while they bulldoze bush, grassy edges, and shelter belts to make it easier for their GPS-guided systems to operate. Ducks Unlimited estimates that in some regions up to 90% of all the wetlands have been drained away. Anyone who lives in these areas can attest that this is all adding up to a wide-reaching transformation of entire landscapes. Now, farmers need to make a living, of course, and the rest of us benefit from their hard work as we sit at the other end of the table eating food that doesn't account for the true ecological costs. But more of us globally are waking up to those costs. We are seeing the effects of climate change. We're seeing birds and insects decline. Indigenous people are running out of places in their traditional territories where they can still hunt, gather medicines, or experience native prairie. Millions of acres in federal and provincial community pastures have been offloaded to private grazing interests, and more than 1 million acres of crown land in the Prairie Ecozone in Saskatchewan have been sold in the last 7 years. New trespass laws aimed at reducing rural crime are making it all the more difficult for those who do not own land to experience the beauty of natural landscapes outside our cities and towns. These changes have brought about an erosion of public involvement in the life of the prairie that we are to share and protect under the treaties signed on our behalf. Now, there are no easy solutions to any of this, but we need to start looking for them now, and we need some leadership at all levels of our communities and governments. Positive signs are all around us, for farmers, young and old, adopting or renewing practices that allow more life on the land and reduce the harmful use of chemicals, often adding livestock back into the farm's nutrient cycle. And several First Nations are finding ways to bring bison back to their reserve lands. But we're going to need policy change in government too. So far, none of our political parties have really made grasslands and wetlands a priority. Fortunately, there are some hardworking public servants at all levels of government who really understand these issues and are waiting for the chance to do more. But they need the right direction and they need funding from policymakers. And that's precisely where we can help as members of the public. We need to get the prairie onto the political agenda as part of this province's climate change, environmental, and agricultural policy. So when there's an election on, and even when there isn't, let your voice be heard. Speak up for the countless creatures who cannot speak for themselves. Ask candidates and politicians what they'll do to turn things around. Join organizations in this province and nationally that are trying to move us all to a culture where we value and protect the wild places that store carbon and that make our landscapes and waterways healthy and resilient.